Freedom means I can ingest something, I can think something, and I can have my own money and not have someone take it away from me, tax it, inflate it. And this all comes down to this reminder of a belief that we have that sovereignty. Maybe you can just give me some of your thoughts on that, because we spent the last couple of years here fighting for freedom of speech. I had to fight for free and fair elections this year when I ran for mayor of London. The police surrounded me and stopped me, and they banned me from campaigning at one point, which again, really, it made me feel like someone was taking my sovereignty away or someone else's from listening to a message. So maybe just speak on that, and then I promise we're going to jump into Bitcoin because I want to go there as well.
Well, so sovereignty, I would define as the authority to act as you see fit. So it just it's almost indistinguishable from agency, right? And it's something that we all desire. No one wants to be under the thumb of anyone else. I think it's a very, not only human desire, but a of life. Like, we want to cooperate. We want to have a relationship. That's the most important thing in life, but it needs to be voluntary, right? You can't, this is obvious in a romantic relationship. Like, if someone was trying to like force you to date them, like, that doesn't work, right? There has to be this mutuality of two sovereign people coming together and deciding together that they want to be together. If you try to force any element of that, then the whole thing is disequilibrated and destroyed. So sovereignty, it's something we commonly relate to countries today, because again, they have actually had the authority to act as they see fit by wielding force. But I would argue that sovereignty actually inheres within the individual. This is the Viktor Frankl final human freedom, right? That you always have this gap that no one can confiscate, which is the space between your external circumstances and your internalized reaction. No one can take you. You can be tortured, you can be beaten, whatever, but you can always choose, right? You can always choose. And I think that is the generative source of actual sovereignty. And this is closely related to these ancient principles of life, liberty, and property as well, right? Something we actually got from London, in 13th century Magna Carta. I think this idea had been around before then, but it actually was crystallized in the Magna Carta, and that civilization had to be based on these things. And life, liberty, and property, very simply, is future, present, and past freedom, right? To lose your life is to lose your future. If someone murders you, they take your life, they've taken your future away from you. Your liberty is your present freedom. If someone imprisons you, then they've taken your present freedom, right? And property is a product of combining your life and liberty with features in nature and storing that freedom in property, right? So, and there's a nuance here too, that people often think that, okay, my house is property or my stock certificate is property or whatever, but it's actually not the thing itself. It's not the asset. Property is the relationship between the owner and asset, right? Such that if someone breaks into your house, you have a certified relationship with that home that you can kick out or use force if necessary to get them out, or call the police, or whatever it may be. And it's that relationship, to the extent that it's socially acknowledged, right? That is property itself. So you can't have true sovereignty without property rights, right? And this is the bedrock of Western civilization, the pursuit of life, liberty, and property. We kind of bastardized it in the US. We switched property to pursuit of happiness, but we'll let that one go. That was like a slavery thing. We'll look at the ancient principle. And another way to think about money and fiat currency inflation is that money is kind of like the highest form of property we have, right? As we said earlier, it's redeemable for anything else in the marketplace. So it's like an apex property right, if you will. When a central bank is when they're arbitrarily increasing the supply of fiat currency, they are diluting the property rights, again, of those depending on the dollar to store value across time. So fiat currency inflation is nothing more than a violation of private property rights. There's no stimulus being provided. Now you could argue in the short run, it does give a stimulative effect, but it's generating these long run consequences of you're basically stealing wealth from those, depending on the dollar, and allocating it to people. So it's stimulative to those who are receiving stolen proceeds, but it's damaging to those that are being stolen from. All of this, so inflation is basically a violation of property rights, the violation of your past freedoms. And it's destructive, right? It's corrosive to the bedrock of Western civilization that we've laid out here. And you brought up the Graham Hancock interview, which I really enjoyed. I listened to that one. It's a damn good one. He is one of the most compelling lectures I've ever heard. There's something psychedelic here too about Bitcoin, actually. I know we haven't gotten into it yet, but my view on the state itself is that we have this externalized ritual structure, right? It's something that there's patterns of action and rituals that we have used over time to kind of protect our borders, and enshrine our culture, enshrine these principles as well, like life and liberty and property. And this is, in my estimation, actually the macrocosmic reflection of something we have internally, that we have as part of in our neural architecture. We have what's called the default mode network. And I think it was Michael Pollan gave a great example about this. These are essentially the patterns of action we have done persistently over time. They just become like, you can actually see the tracks carved in your neural architecture, that they become these habituated patterns of action, if you will. And Michael Pollan, in his book, I forget the name of the book.
How to Change Your Mind.
That's right. How to Change Your Mind. He describes the default mode network as like a ski mountain with these grooves, ski grooves carved into it. And that your thoughts will kind of naturally follow the grooves, your thoughts and your actions. It's just path of least resistance. But he said the interesting thing about psychedelics, and this is one of their most powerful features, is that they disrupt the default mode network. So he described the psychedelic as like a storm rolling in and being a coat of fresh powder onto the mountain, such that it covers up all these grooves and allows you to see the whole picture, if you will, and kind of establish new patterns, new habits, new behaviors. And I think that Bitcoin and Bitcoin has a lot of psychedelic properties. If you've been down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, you'll see people having these personal transformations, and it's a whole thing. But I think that that's what's happening here, is that we have Bitcoin as a money, as a digital asset that the state cannot control. Coercion cannot bend. Rules that are unchangeable, effectively, that is disruptive to this externalized default mode network that we call the state, right? These are just the patterns we've sort of adopted from history and we're carrying out unthinkingly often, right? And to the point where it's self-deceiving, right? Like I think of Jerome Powell, who's the chairman of the Federal Reserve here in the US. He's on national TV saying there's absolutely no relationship between monetary policy and wealth disparity, saying that the more money we print has no impact on wealth distribution. Yeah. And like, I don't know if he actually believes that, but I know he's actually wrong. Like it's either a bold-faced lie or he's completely ignorant and he runs the Federal Reserve. So either outcome is really bad. So I kind of view, and that's a bit of a cosmic meandering there, but I think there is a psychedelic property to Bitcoin.